Spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, who's here with me in Jerusalem. You see the pictures, what's going on in Gaza City. Colonel, I assume you know.
Well, to understand that footage, we have to think about what we've actually seen throughout the course of the day. And what we have seen is long-range rockets launched all the way up to Haifa. We've seen...
From Gaza City?
From Gaza. From
Gaza City, where we're showing those pictures?
The long-range capabilities are in the midst of Gaza City, in the areas of Beit Lahia, the areas of...
Are those your targets right now that you're going after in Gaza City?
Without going into specifics, we are continuing our activities. And as I said, we have to look at what happened today. We've had long-range rockets all the way up to Haifa. 3/4 of our country threatened by these rockets. We've had mortar rockets close by, killing 4 soldiers in the immediate vicinity of Gaza. And we've had infiltration from a tunnel into Israeli territory and also shots fired there at our forces. So we have seen the capabilities of Hamas. We've seen their intentions, what they mean when they say ceasefire, and we've seen it on all fronts. So we are determined to continue with our striking against Hamas as a terrorist organization. This is an organization that is running a campaign of terror against the state of Israel. They are our neighbors in our back door, and we don't want them there. We want them to stop this aggression against us. We want to deal with these attacks. We want to contain it and take the battle to them and not have them bombarding us with these rockets.
I assume those flares that we saw over Gaza City, those are Israeli flares. You're illuminating the skies. What's the point of that?
Well, we have extensive operations, and indeed we have part of this is the flares which are coming over. We have other activities that are taking place in the peripheral areas to deal with the tunnels like you visited today. So indeed we have extensive operations, and they are part of what we see as the development of this plan of action, which is a gradual plan, increasing the pressure on this terrorist organization that will be pursued and threatened.
So the artillery we're hearing, is that naval artillery? Is that ground artillery? What is that artillery coming from, and what is the target?
Well, you can't see any targets there specifically, so I think it's safe to say that those are illumination. They do that. They illuminate the sky. We are carrying out our activities in order to strike Hamas, to, I would say, paralyze this organization who cannot feel free to operate against the state of Israel and expect to live in beneath ground in these holes that they have dug, if it's beneath hospitals or in other places throughout the Gaza Strip, and expect to come out and everything will be up as normal.
As you know, there was a refugee camp that was hit today, a hospital in Gaza that was hit today, a lot of casualties, including children. Hamas says Israel was responsible.
That's ridiculous. It's outrageous. There is nothing true about that. We released just shortly ago, we released our analysis of the launch trajectory of the rockets that came out of Hamas's controlled area in Gaza. They were launched towards Israel. One of them actually reached Ashkelon. You visited there, and 2 of them fell in the area of Gaza City. One in Shati refugee camp, and one of them on the hospital in Shifa Hospital, and a 4th one which actually landed in the sea. So that's a ridiculous claim. It's outrageous. They have there's no limits to the lies that these people will tell. This is the type of organization that is actually putting the figures of the deaths in Gaza.
Colonel, stand by for a moment. I want to get back to you. But Carl Penhall, I understand there's been more, illumination, more artillery. What are you hearing and what are you seeing right now?
Absolutely, Wolf, and it is so good that you have Colonel Peter Lerner there just to advise him that one of their Israeli illumination rounds, 2 of them in fact, have fallen into a United Nations school being used as a shelter for displaced people. That approximately 300 yards from our building. We understand, as Mr. Lerner has explained, that those rounds are being used to light up the sky. There is no moon tonight, So I would guess perhaps, and it is just a guess on my part, that those rounds could be being used to light up the sky for drones to then perhaps look for targets. But again, I saw people in that United Nations school about 300 yards from us looking as that illumination round dropped down towards the courtyard. These illumination rounds, of course, are being fired from artillery shells. I believe that they're coming out from the 155mm self-propelled field guns up there on the border. That is a big canister once it has ejected that illumination round, and those are falling to ground. And as I say, we just saw the illumination flares dropping in to the school courtyard, so perhaps you could just advise there so that we see no accidents, no unintended accidents with any of these canisters falling into that school, or any of these illumination rounds starting any unwanted fires. Wolf.
All right, Carl, stand by. I just want to follow up a little bit on that and some other questions. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner is still with us, the spokesman for the IDF. So the canister comes down, it illuminates the skies, it falls on the ground. Can it start a fire? Can it, obviously, if it hits someone, it could cause some serious problems.
Yeah, but they aren't explosive munitions. They are indeed to illuminate the sky, and used for different types of activities, whether it's ground or aerial surveillance and different types of activities. There are plenty activities taking place on the ground with Hamas terrorists that are utilizing the civilian environment in order to conceal their actions.
Is today the most intensive day of military activity on the part of the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, since this ground campaign began?
I think we've had more extensive activities, over the course of the last 2 weeks. Indeed, we have to understand that this is a ground activity. The actions taking place on the ground are extensive. We are combating and meeting these terrorists in their backyard, and we're not letting them spill over into Israel.
The Hamas militants who got into a tunnel, not far from the tunnel I was at today, they got into Israel. They had an exchange of gunfire with Israeli troops. What happened after that? Because earlier in the day, there were reports that some of these Hamas militants were in Israel and remained at large.
Well, to the best of my knowledge, and I was checking it just before I came on, force at the location indeed engaged the terrorists, and I'm aware of one terrorist that was either killed or injured on that site, and we pursued the rest. I can't confirm anything else other than that. Indeed, this is the exact type of concerns we have with these tunnels, that the way they built them. This is a whole strategy.
How close are you to destroying all those tunnels?
It's we know what we know. We're still. We saw this tunnel that was today, where we actually had an idea that there was a tunnel there, but we didn't know where it was going to come out, and this is the concern that we have. The entire strategy of investing in these tunnels that have taken, it takes them about, they can go 5 meters per day to build these tunnels. So in a 3-kilometer tunnel, that's an extensive project.
I was in one of those 3-kilometer tunnels earlier today, 2.8 kilometers to be precise, and this lieutenant colonel who was escorting me from the IDF said it took him about 2 years, he believes, to build
that strategy.
tunnel.
That is vision. That is something that they thought that in a situation like this would give them the upper hand. I'm happy to say that every time they've tried to infiltrate Israel, they've met the IDF forces. They have failed. This was a bad project. It has been a bad investment on behalf of Hamas, with about $30 million investing and pouring cement into the ground, an investment which I'm happy to say is null and void.
Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, thanks very much for joining us.